The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our BI360 webinar. Solver is our ISV of the month, so we're glad to have them join us today for this webinar. And just to go through some housekeeping items, excuse me, speaking now, Chelsea Schlepp. I'm one of the client strategy managers here with Interdyne Artis. We also have Erin Daniels on the line, who is the other client strategy manager with Interdyne Artis, so you're probably familiar with one of us, as you probably work with one of us. And we also have Tom Franks from Solver on the line, so he's our product expert and going to be running that demo for us today. We do have a place on the GoToWebinar side pane that you can enter questions. We'll be stopping once in the middle and then at the end for questions. So as they come up, just go ahead and type them in and we'll go ahead and get your questions answered during those times. And we will be recording the webinar. So if you need a copy of it later, you can certainly reach out to request that. We will have that available. Either we can email it to you or have it on our website. So with that all being said, I will turn it over to Tom and he's going to get us started.
Thanks so much, Chelsea, and I'm Tom Franks again with Solver. I am here in the Carolinas, and I wanted to thank you for allowing me to take an hour to show BI360, and that is the name of our software. What it does in quick way is allow people who know Excel but don't know how to program to be able to create reports, to be able to create budget templates and dashboards to help get the data in their system to the right people at the right time. And by being an Excel add-in, it really does make it easier for accountants and business users to do that instead of IT people who typically do that today, or consultants. So what I'll do is I'm going to show kind of specifically in that Dynamics GP world, I'm going to show some example reports. I'm going to write a report from scratch. I'm going to show different ways we can deliver reports, and at the end I'm going to show some dashboards and budgeting. And BI360 is unique in that we access our data in two ways. On the screen right now is our dotted lines, are what we call live reporting, and that is right from our Excel add-in. We can access reports inside of the data in that Dynamics GP database, SQL database, immediately without any intermediate steps. We also have the ability to have a data warehouse, and when there are other sources like Microsoft CRM or an outsourced payroll system or an industry-specific package for whatever it does unique to your industry, can all go into that data warehouse. We also can put into that data more of the less structured data sources like customer satisfaction surveys or other things that are very important, even though they don't happen to live inside of an ERP or a CRM or another three-letter acronym application that makes them sound so important. So all of that data in a data warehouse can be used for budgeting, can be used for dashboards, and can be used, of course, for reporting. So we'll put all of that together. We have those are solid lines. So I'm going to start with the live reporting and branch out to the more data warehouse reporting, because that is kind of how our pricing works as well. So again, please, any questions you have, please write them in the questions pane, and we'll stop once or twice to be able to answer those. So starting out, here is a BI360 report. And one of the things I really want to stress is that these reports work for not just the general ledger, but for the rest of the rest of the system as well. So here's a kind of an example of that. This is kind of an enhanced profit and loss statement. I'll show how it's enhanced in a minute, but first I'm in Excel 2013. We work everywhere from Excel version 2007 on up to the most current version. Before I run this report, it's pretty short. It's 33, it's on row 33, and that's the bottom line. Then secondly, we have on the left what we call metadata. This is all the field names for Dynamics GP, and I'm running this out of that Fabricam database, that sample database that comes with Dynamics GP. And then we have each of our tables here, and then each of the field names that we have can be changed or made unique to what you want. The kind of account string, that segmented account number in Fabricam is account, department, and division. In your system, of course, it's probably a different number of segments with different names. Would name that specifically for you. And the most important thing is when we create these reports, you don't have to know what GL402000 means. Those table names, that table structure, you don't need to know that. You just get to call it department. So let's go ahead and run this report. When we execute it, we can pick whatever, in this case, department we want to use, pick the period we want to use, and go ahead and run this. As it runs, it's going to expand. Take a look at row 8 here, and it's going to grow and include all of our revenue accounts. Same thing with some of the other ones as well. So here it comes in. So I'm going to actually scroll down past the revenue. So I'm going to tell you the column headings first and then scroll down. So first, this report became long, so it's, over 100 and some rows long. We expanded all of that. We added a couple of things unique in here. Of course, actual and budget is not unique, even the variance, although that is a standard Excel formula. Kind of what's unique is having a graph in here. Standard Microsoft tools can't do that, nor can they do the conditional formatting that we had here, the little stoplights or whatever else you want to use. And that's nice when you can have a variance and make sure it's good or bad, and there should be a red one here somewhere. We also have some data bars here as well. What's kind of unique about this, though, is these 3 columns to the right. I have unposted transactions here, and you don't always want to see unposted transactions, but there's sometimes you do. If we're looking at the budget to actual, especially of expenses, sometimes they stay in AP unposted for a little bit of time. And then secondly, we have the purchase order details, both debits and credits returns, so we can look at that. So if I take a look down, then we have some of this purchasing data here, occasionally a return as well. So that's important to be able to take a look at that. On all of these transactions, if I right-click and go past the normal things you see in Excel on a right-click, I can drill down to the transactions that make this up. And in this case, this is general ledger detailed transactions from Dynamics GP. They are awesome because you have this thing called originating master name. There it is. That is customer or vendor transactions, depending on if it's a customer or a vendor. And that can be helpful. Of course, at the right, I have the debits and credits here as well. If I do that on the purchase order column, I'm drilling down to the purchase order transactions, not the general ledger transactions. So again, have our voucher numbers, have the general ledger thing it's attached to, and of course the amounts and the dates and so on here as well. So drill down into whatever module it comes from, and that's pretty handy to have to be able to prove those numbers are correct. So again, at the bottom, have our net income. If I unrun this, I want to show kind of how this is done. So if I bring in our layout editor, if I look at row 8, then the last big thing that I want to show is that we have here the ability to do a range of accounts. And again, our sales 4,100 to 4,142. If I want to add another account, I can hold down Control and add one, even if it's out of order, and be able to do that as well. The expanding button, if I turn it off, makes it work like Management Reporter or FRX. Define that range of a couple dozen accounts and total it on row 9 where it's called revenue. That's right here, revenues. But if I click this, it will show each and every account in there that has transactions below it. And that's extra important to be able to do. That means the maintenance of anything in that range, new accounts added, they'll print on the statement and I don't have to do anything additional. It can make these reports a whole lot less easy, a whole lot less time to maintain the Management Reporter or FRX. So I'm going to run this one more time. Want to see that account 4180 shows up here as it does, and then we're able to include that one as well. Okay, so let me put this one away. And what I'm going to do is write a report from scratch. That's kind of the easier way to show how to create these. I am going to start with a totally blank spreadsheet. I'm going to use Dynamics GP as my data source and that Fabricam database. I'm going to move the layout editor over to the right, and I'm going to just make these a little bit wider here and make this one a little bit wider and that one skinnier. And I'm going to do a trial balance. Okay, so I just did a little tiny bit of putting in some headers. I'm going to now drag in my account string right to there, and this really is drag and drop reporting. Then I'm going to pull in the name of that or the description of the account, put that right there. Then next I will pull in the period balance. I'm going to do that twice, and I'm going to do that because I want to show off my date functions. So again, we link to the period file of Dynamics GP, and I can do period this year, I can do year to date, which I'll put in column D, and I'll do last year to date in column E. And actually I have written my report right now. I am going to take just a couple of seconds, and I'm going to go ahead and make that bold and underline and just format this a little bit, make it slightly presentable with a gigantic font here, and we'll go ahead and make this dollars, and I don't like decimal places. We'll pick the period again because I said period to date, and I'm sorry, year to date. We get to select the period we want to run it for. And let's go ahead and run this. So then here's our trial balance as it's coming through. Each of these have that right-click drill down, so we can drill down to the transactions that make that up. So again, I have one for each of the 3 periods in the summary file. That's not a separate report or something else you have to write. It's that easy to put in. I'm going to add a second. I'm going to actually do 2 extra kind of additions to this report. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a subtotaling row. So I'm going to actually go into Excel and do an insert. That's a normal Excel type of thing, and I'm going to insert this product category, account category field. It has a description as well, so I'll drag that in. And then I'm going to re-drag in my period balance here and here. And then the next thing I didn't do before was a variance, but I just equal D minus E. I can even copy that up 1, paste there, and I'm now going to do 2 other things on this. These are the ones you kind of have to go to class for, but I'm going to actually expand the group category field around the account number field, and that's going to make it subtotal. And I put an extra row at the bottom just for blank lines. Then second two pair of things I like to do, and this is just personal preference, I always like to make that a different background color, and I like to use the group ungroup feature of Excel. Again, those are both standard Excel things, but when I run this, what it's going to do is, and actually here are here's the standard Fabricam account categories. You can make those what you wish. By leaving it blank, I chose them all. And then this allows me to show each of my categories. And then if I want to open up the cash or open up the assets, I'm able to do just that. Of course, if I hit the 2, I expand all of them. But I like that expand, the group ungroup, just as a nice way to get a small report on a, big report on a small screen. Then secondly, the most important thing about this report is it is automatically self-maintaining. No matter how many account categories I add, no matter how many general ledger chart of accounts I add, they'll all show up on this report. That account category is a required field in GP for the account number, so you got to put something there, and then it'll report as it was set up to. So no going back as you add new accounts to find the right reports that they're in and putting that in, at least with this report. And the more you can use these attributes to be able to do your subtotaling, to be able to do your reports, and what I'll show you next, the better off you'll be. I know everybody has certain reports that have to be absolutely formatted some specific way that it's been for the last 18 years. You can go ahead and do that too. But the more you can use that expanding button and be able to use some of these attributes that are already in Dynamics GP, the less time you'll spend maintaining the reports, and they'll actually even execute a little bit faster. Last thing I'm going to do on this report is I didn't do anything at the beginning with division and department, so I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm just going to drag that division name up here, and then I'm going to go into my layout and I'm going to drag division in here, and that is my list of them. I'm going to create a new parameter. I could pick any of the 4 ways to show that. I'm going to allow multiple selection. I can pick more than one at a time. And then I'm going to choose the thing we call sheet per value. And it is a neat option I wanted to make sure you understood. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do that one, and I'll leave out that one just so we can. So as I go ahead and run this, watch at the very bottom, it's going to now take my trial balance and put a tab for each individual one. So there's my 100, there's my 200, so on and so on. So again, we can see these, but the nice thing is one line of kind of setup, 2, and then, but that's automatically, no matter how many divisions it's there, how many accounts, account categories, it's a self-maintaining report. So that is in some ways the goal as you create these. I'm going to go ahead and put this one away, and I want to show one other report that I have just to kind of show a little bit of what we can do here. This is a payables report. So again, not just general ledger in our world here, and what we're able to, I'll run this report and then we'll change it a little bit, running it for some of my vendors, not all, and running it for a couple of months at the beginning of 2014. And here's the report, and again, it's just okay. They got the vendor name a few too many times, got the document date and the amount, but not so much some other things. So let's go ahead and improve that. First, I'm going to clear out the vendor name. But if we go back into this, I have all of the payable fields available for us here. And I'm going to go ahead and drag in now under vendor. I'll drag in the vendor name to the green column. I'll put the city there as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag in the, as I scroll down, I have the, put the vendor away. I have document date, but not document number, so I'll put that there. And then I also have a due date. I'll put that one over here. And then three last things. I'll take the transaction description and put it in the middle. And I'll take this document amount and I'll put it at the top so we can total that. And then the last thing I'll do is just kind of go up at the top. We do have a field here called, I got to remember to get the right one, posting transaction type, document type, there it is. All right, so if I run this now, we'll see how this looks. These are the document types: invoice, payment, credit memo, that type of stuff. In fact, the schedule, if you know enough about GP, you'll know you really don't want those, at least on this type of report. So, so here we go. So have the invoices, have the payments that kind of match that up, have the descriptions. Hopefully in your system they look a lot more like expense report number than the Fabricam beginning balances and that type of stuff, and blanks and sloppy data in there. But you can get the idea how easy it is to change these reports, make them what you want to, and be able to put that in. Okay, so I'm going to put that away. And I'm going to stop for a second and see if I have any questions so far.
I have one question. Can BI360 do allocations?
Yes, we can do allocations through BI360. And I can actually go ahead and show that for a minute as well. So first, as I do that, I'll show an example. The example I'm going to show is off the data warehouse, but we can do allocations either directly from GP or directly from the data warehouse. If you're doing it directly from GP, it helps an awful lot to have unit accounts set up, unless you're only allocating dollars off of dollars. So what I have here is an example report that was done, and what someone wanted to do was they had three main revenue accounts, and they were natural accounts, not anything fancier, but they wanted to make a kind of sort of profit and loss statement out of each one of those revenue accounts, even though they had not set up anything to do that at all ever. So I'm running this report. So what they did was to create an allocation model. As I take a look over here, this allocation, they actually took all the expenses and they allocated some of the salary by individuals. They did some of it by head count. They did some on a direct expense allocation model. And then they last did a square foot allocation. And I think that one was tape on the floor type of allocation. So all the expenses, they allocated one of those four, and I know four is a little bit much, but just wanted to kind of show we can do it all. So in this case, they took their top 5 employees and did a, not really a timesheet, but a pretend timesheet. But for September, if Justin was only working 50% on the budgeting and forecasting product and working the other 50% on the dashboard and scorecard, can update that. Of course, the next month it may go back the other way, 100% and 0, and so on as they need to meet a deadline or something else. So as they went ahead and did that, again, got some charts at the bottom. The second one they put in was to actually do the head count and kind of measure that out for other people as well. Third, they put in and typed in the square footage. Theirs so far didn't change through, I'm sorry, it did change in September, an extra 500 feet there, and none of the others went down, so they put in an addition to be able to put that in, and then there's the percentages that they've done on their expenses that relate to that. And then last, the direct expense. That was just typed in. It certainly, for many people, could be based off of revenue. It could be based off of, if not head count or something else, it could be based off of support calls, or it could be based off of anything else that you can think of. So when they've done all of this and put it in and changed it and made it right and changed it for the correct months, they then have a pre-allocation total that comes straight from the financial system, but then they've allocated out these expenses based on this. They can do it month by month if they wish to as well, and be able to see their profitability on each of these three different products as they've allocated things out. So again, kind of an interesting little project, but an example of allocation. So although BI360 reports can be simple, I guess they can be pretty complex as well. And I don't mean complex in terms of creating the reports. I just mean complex in that there were 4 different sections of data entry to help bring in the allocations the way they wanted to do them. If this head count or square footage or something else were unit accounts in GP, you could absolutely pull that data right out of there to be able to allocate as well. So thank you for the question. Hope that answered it. So what I'm going to show...
And we have,
sure.
Tom, we actually have one of those questions. Can you convert reports from FRX to BI360? That's a great question, and I am going to give a yes but answer. So yes, we have a tool that can take a report from FRX and turn it into a BI360 report. But the but comes in is that FRX did not have this expanding button. So if instead of 5 rows or 4 or 5 or whatever I have on this report that come into BI360 and run it fairly nice, if there were 40 rows in the FRX template, it would convert as 40 rows and do them exactly the way they were in FRX. All of the expanding buttons would be off because that's what FRX could do. But yes, we can then pull those in. What you can do later is instead of doing it this way, you can go in, maybe change the rows, put on the expanding button, delete a few of them, and improve your report from there. But it will convert, it will run. There's some things it doesn't do. If you have an Excel spreadsheet as a data source, we don't support that. There's a few other things that we don't do.
You kind of have to look at each one after they convert, but there is a convert tool. But I don't want anybody to think, oh, I'll convert them, I'll be done, and I'll never have to update those spreadsheets again unless I add new accounts. I want you to go back and use the expanding button and make the reports take less time to maintain in the future. We do have it for FRX. We don't have it for Management Reporter, so I know I get that question occasionally as well. So, great question. Thank you for asking that. Any more?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on, and I'll show a couple of ways we can run these reports. So first, we have a designer and a run area. We call this designer area a power user, and that's on our price sheet. The run is what we call an end user. When you run this, you're able to run it on demand as I did before, and then secondly, you're able to do what I call the right-click drill down to be able to see that report and see the details underneath it. So that is kind of standard in what we do. That is on-demand reporting. The second thing that we have that goes along with it is we have something called the publisher module, and this is a push model. So I have 3 reports here. I could have more if I wanted to, or maybe a Word document as a glossary, and be able to batch these reports together, send them to the right people inside the organization with the right security, send them as either an Excel workbook or a PDF or a few other options that aren't nearly as popular, and be able to, at that point, let me open that up again. And then be able to run those either with a Run Now button or to schedule it for a certain date and time. So typically at the end of the month, that Run Now is the most popular. If there's weekly reports or daily reports or something like that, the scheduler is very popular, but you are able to batch those together, send them to many people at once, and that's very, very helpful in sending out that, especially when there's dozens of people who need to get the end of the month report batches. Okay, so that's push. So again, that shows up in their email, or if it's in a folder, they can go to the shared drive to be able to see that. If you have SharePoint, well, heck, you can email it to SharePoint or stick it in the folder that belongs to SharePoint, and these will be SharePoint-enabled things. The third option we have is what we call our BI360 Portal. That is for the same users, username and login password, the same as Active Directory. Then they're able to get reports on demand from here. And again, this is really the same as, this is the same way as doing a report through Excel. You'll see the letters on the columns and the numbers on the rows like Excel, instead of the selection criteria being on the left, it's at the top, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. We can pick whatever selection criteria as an end user our power users gave us, in this case entity, and then we're able to run that and see it. As this runs for a second, first I'll point out that we do have a graph at the top on this report and in color. That's don't see that on a lot of the Microsoft tools, but it's there. But more importantly, there's 2 or 3 extra things that we're able to do in this portal. The first is we have the last bunch of times this was run, and if you look extra close, this is for company SUS, this is company SCA. So if I click on this one that was ran yesterday, again, I have that company and I can check my numbers, and I can go back, see how I'm doing on the other one, and if I'm doing some comparisons or something, it makes it easy. I don't have to rerun the reports all the time. Secondly, I have a download. I can download this to Excel. That does it with formulas, so then I have a what-if example of this exact report ready to go. And then third, I have a share button that allows me to share this with somebody else. They could hit the QR code with their phone if they wanted to. In reality, this send as an email is the most popular option, but it sends the report with the exact same selection criteria to another user if they have security to see that company, division, department report, and then you can have a nice discussion about why something's over budget when no one thinks it should be. Okay, so so that is our portal. So just seeing reports in there is one thing. Second thing that we can do is see dashboards. These are just graphical browser-based dashboards. I'll make this full screen so we can see the full little logo and everything. But these are not just pretty pictures, these are interactive. So if I go ahead here and click on this first company, I'll drill to the account here, but I believe these bottom three will change as well and the ones on top will not. But that's however we've set that up. Notice that as I clicked on it, I changed my general ledger liquidity, but I also changed my top 10 receivables and payables, or customers and vendors, to be able to see that too. So a nice way to be able to do that. I could consolidate receivable, vendors and customers across companies if I need to. Again, separate databases in GP, but this one's off our data warehouse, so we're able to consolidate as much data as you wish to put in the data warehouse. Last, I have a second dashboard here with a few other things like a pie chart and some other things to be able to put back in. I went from 4 different business units to 4 different quarters, so it didn't change quite as much as you'd originally think, but it sure did kind of change and be able to drill to certain things. Okay. Third thing that I'm able to do inside this portal is this is one of the 2 ways that we do budgeting. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and show budgeting and be able to show a few examples in the time that I have left. And I've got about 20 minutes and some time for questions to do that. So first I wanted to show what we call the other expenses. And as I bring that up, I want to make a couple of just points as you're seeing this first. Everything I'm going to do here is as an end user. I'm not going to be a power user at this point, but power users create these templates using our reporting tool the same way they did reports. The only thing they do is say, I'm allowed to write data back to the data warehouse in this example, or to GP, and be able to save that data. Secondly, I have a bunch of data in here. We did kind of a baseline of data from last year copied in, but we're allowed to change that here, and you'll see some of that and add some new things as well. And then third, everything in yellow is inner data here. Things in blue as a color just mean this is print only or calculated. And I just kind of want you to get used to that color scheme. It's Excel. You can make those colors whatever you wish, and that's fine. So I have 12 months to enter budget. I have the last 12 months of, I'll make this bigger, of comparisons. And 9 months of those are actual, 3 months are forecast. That's typical when you're doing budgeting. And then at the bottom, I have some accounts budgeted on other forms. I'll show those other forms in a minute, but they're here just so I can see for my department. Again, I didn't quite make a big presentation out of saying I'm doing this for Department 300, the sales team, but again, I'm doing just that. While I'm entering data here for Department 300, Chelsea and Aaron could be entering it for admin and finance and accounting at the same time. We're writing to a SQL database. It's multi-user. We don't have to coordinate with each other. We don't have to pass something from one to the other. No one has to copy and paste data back. This is browser-based, and we're all entering data back into the screen itself. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the big screen mode. First thing is, and we can, if I need to enter some miscellaneous expenses, I can just type a number and enter. That does work here. If that's necessary, we'll do just another one of those two. But if I scroll up and start to change some of these, I'll let you know how that works. In fact, if I take a look here at cellular expenses, if I can maybe change providers and get a better quote, but if I do $8,000 now and I want to then break that out evenly, that's kind of how cell phones work, right? So now I'm $667 or so a month with rounding in the last month. So I'll go ahead and save that. So that's a spread tool. That's one way to do it. Second one, I'll do this on the regular telephones. I have last year's numbers here. They're in 50% kind of intensity, but that's last year's. I saw it on the screen before. But what we can do here is, if we want, is we can copy this from last year. And let's say those landline telephone expenses are going down at 13% a year. I'm going to hit apply. Watch the 2210. As I hit apply, it went down. You know, I can even type over the December number since that looked extra high, and I'll press OK, and then that's our new number for telephone expense. So can be able to quickly do some of those. Third thing that we can do, let me do conferences and seminars here as an example, is we're able to then be able to enter below general ledger line item details. So sometimes you might say vendor 1 through 4. Sometimes you just might name the conference. Solver has a focus conference. We do our own every August. So if you want to type in a budget for that, maybe the airfare 2 months ahead of time, it's in San Diego, blah, 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 but can put that in. So what we've done now is again upped our budget on some of these months to go with it. But again, we then have it there. I'll take out that one and maybe make our budget a little bit more realistic. So now if I go back down and take a look, I'm still over budget on some, but not all of these. And I could keep going and updating my budget to what I want. When the little squares are around this, it means we have the right-click kind of below general ledger line item details. When they aren't there, it means they're not there. And the only reason we do that is we don't want you to type a number over when there's multiple items below it. So there. When we're done with this, we hit the store button, and then we have we've stored that back in, and it's going to redraw the report. When I'm done with everything and I have it grayed out, there's a check mark here, and if I click that, it means I'm done with my budget. It's ready for the approver or the next person to take over and take a look at this. So I have it grayed out here only because of the way we do this demo. We have other salespeople who can look at it at the same time, and if I clicked it, I'd never be able to get back to it until whoever approved it was done and said they wanted me to. So we just grayed that out to protect salespeople from themselves. So that is one budget. Again, kind of have that right-click spread tool and a below general ledger line item on the fly thing. The second thing that we can do, especially when we have our data warehouse is be able to budget at extra detailed levels. So we can put in, if we wish, an assumptions tab, and this is kind of just things that are related to your organization that are either not in GP or they're different next year in GP than this year. So, you know, things like that FICA maximum seem to change every year. What we are contributing to benefits, it probably is going to have to go up a little, and so on. We also put in here some assumptions. In this case, average airfare, average hotel room, did it in a few other countries too, but kind of some travel expenses. But every organization adds to this list too. So if there's a reimbursement rate for something for one of your services, that go ahead and put it in here. If you have an average you know, commodity price of something that's out there that you want to store centrally and make sure everybody uses the same one, absolutely go ahead and do that. If anything else that you want to, you can put in here. And then I'm going to go back and show two examples of how we've used this. I didn't save my changes just in case any auditors are in the audience. Here's a personnel. So if payroll data is with, you know, ADP or the GP payroll or anybody else out there that does payroll, there's lots of them, Ceridian, etc. We can pull that data into the data warehouse, assign security. So I'm only able to see this for the people I already know what they make, because that is part of it. And then we can go ahead in and work with this. So if there's any new hires, I can put that in here. If we have what month is their annual review, we can put that in. If we're lucky enough that everybody's the same, we can copy and paste it. If it's a formula based on hire date, we can sure do that too. And then, you know, say, hey, we'll budget for the 3% raise, 4% for these people, maybe just $2,000 for that person. And then are they eligible for the health care? I'm actually even going to do that Control-C, Control-V thing just to make a shortcut here. Save this if I want to. But the most important stuff is all the formulas that happen over to the right. So you'll see that in a second as this finishes storing. There it is. Okay. So to the right then is all the math, and again, no more yellow boxes, but we then calculate out the salary per month. We do the total compensation, and that includes things like that FICA. There's the maximum and so on and so on. So again, after a couple of months for certain people, it goes down a bunch as it, you know, as the law says it should, blah, 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 and unemployment rates and so on. Even had full-time equivalents, you know, here to the right. So can calculate all of that, store it in the data warehouse, and then you're ready to go. All right, third one that I'll do, and then is travel. And I like to show this travel for two reasons. The first is just about everybody has travel. So if I have a new office we're going to open, and we volunteered Clint and Charlie to go ahead out and open it, and we think we're going to send them on 5 trips for 4 days each. And it requires an air flight, and we'll let Charlie drive the car, not Clint. And it's 80 miles. And we'll do that from January through May. So on. So then, as I scroll to the right, we've allocated out our expenses. kind of average for the month. We didn't want to tell it which month we're doing all of this stuff or how many trips, but just allocate it out. So again, 5 months, 5 trips. There's my airfare, same thing on the hotels, and so on, and all the way down to budget for tips and mileage and so on. But we can put that in. So what I like about this is you can do this for any specific expense or revenue that you really want to dig into and get the details out of it. But what I really like about this is we let the manager of this department not think in terms of dollars. We let them think in terms of the things they do. Why are you traveling? How many trips? How many nights? Yes, no questions. Pick the months, boom, you're done. Put all those yellow squares together. Didn't hide them throughout the system to make it a little bit trickier, but just put it together real quick. So it's quick for them to enter, and yet it's probably more accurate because we're pulling from a central thing on the airfare. They're $4.95 each. Of course, if you have people try to figure that out ahead of time, it's impossible. The airfares change even more than once a day, right? So don't even try. Just work with the average, and we'll work from there. If someone needs to, review this, I mean, they can sure go and say, I think they can get away with 3 nights per trip instead of 4 and change things from there. But they don't have to go through and just put some random changes in there too. So when we're done with this, we could save it and move on. But this is a specialized below general ledger, add extra details to my budgeting system and be able to do that. I also like that we're letting people not enter dollars if they're not used to it. Let them enter what you do. It's probably going to be more accurate that way. At least that's the theory, right? So pulling back here, I'm going to show one more kind of example here, and this is I have 2 different revenue ones. I'll go ahead and do this one for no other reason than it used some GP demo data to do it. But what we're doing in this one is revenue and cost of sales detail. So we're copying from last year our budget by customer, by product grouping. So if I go down and enter a new one, you can kind of see this, and we can have our good friends at Aaron Fitz Electrical ordering, in this case, a financial reporting. Say they're going to order 2 of those, and they're $4,000 each, and they'll do it from January to April, and then that's $2,000 a month for the first couple of months, and so on. So that's the budget. So certainly have had people do it without the months or be more specific on the months. Certainly have done it more in terms of product and even the price you don't type in. It can look it up from a database. Many different ways to do this, but however, if you want to go detail of customer and product information, absolutely you can. You can assign it to your sales reps to do. You can do it without them, whatever is more accurate, and I won't venture an opinion on that. But this is one way of several ways to do data. You can pull this from CRM if that makes sense. If your sales cycle is the right length to be able to do that for budgeting, maybe do it for forecasting, something like that. So with the data warehouse, we have the ability to pull in data not only from GP, but maybe from CRM, maybe from payroll, as I showed, maybe from travel websites or something else, whatever makes sense for you to do. So wanted to check to see if there's any questions, and
Yeah, I have one question. How easy is it to group financial reports and print them all at one time?
That is quite easy with the our publisher tool. And I did show that for just a couple of minutes here, and again, just for review, or maybe you asked that before I showed it. But we can group a few reports together and then send them either by email or to a folder, or possibly to a printer if you, or a library if you wish, but be able to then show those and batch those and push them out to people. So very easy to do that, and this is one of our most popular features for people who deliver reports to 25 or more people. All right, any other questions?
That is all we have at the moment.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Interdyne Artists. If you have any questions after we get off, contact Erin or Chelsea. They know my email by heart, and we can get an answer to you. If pricing is a question, also talk to them. We price this by the modules that I showed today, but also by the users that I briefly mentioned. But with that information, we can kind of give you a customized quote for what it might be, and I'd be happy to show this to anybody who has some interest in more detail and more specific examples to your type of industry. So thanks again.
Hey, Tom, do you mind throwing us that contact information just one more time in case anyone doesn't have it?
I sure can.
Great, thank you.
And great pictures, by the way, too.
Thanks. Okay, so as Tom said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Erin or myself, and we can go from there. And we thank you all for taking the time to join us this afternoon, and hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you very much.